Yo, what's up guys, welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to just the facts about the US population, geography and demographics. You know I love fact videos and that sort of stuff, so I'm always down to do them, and this is another one from a channel that I've never done a reaction to, so I am intrigued to see how this video is. Hopefully it's a good video, a good representation, and it's all like factual information. But yeah, hopefully going to enjoy, hopefully you're all doing well. I've done another video today that I think will go before this, but if you've not seen that, hopefully you had a great Christmas. I haven't done a video since Christmas, so this is my first time saying that. But yeah, hopefully you had a great time with your families and loved ones, and you go on to have a great New Year's. I have been ill, so that's why I've not been posting, because I got ill on Christmas Day, and then since then I've been pretty ill, so that's why there's been no videos. But we're back now, and yeah, we're going to get back into these reactions, and let's jump into this video.
The ancient Greeks said, "You must know thyself." So let's get to know this great country we call home. The United States of America is a vast country. At 3.8 million square miles, a square mile, by the way, is about 484 football fields all crammed together.
Holy shit.
We are the third largest country by area in the world.
Yep.
Behind whom? Russia, and guess who else? China, Brazil. No, the answer is actually
Canada.
Our neighbors up north. Canada is the second largest country by area. Across our 3.8 million square miles, we have 4 million miles of roads, 63 national parks, and 37% of all land is owned by the government, federal, state, local. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, there were nearly 337 million people in the U.S. as of July 2024, which is 4% of the world's population, which is just over 8 billion. Our population grew by 1.6 million people in 2023. 69% of that, or 1.1 million people, was from net migration into the country and back out, while the remaining 500,000 came from more babies being born than for people dying in the country.
Okay.
The total U.S. population growth rate in 2023 was only
Oh, it's mad to see the growth slowing down so much in the last like 5 years. Holy shit. I wonder what that is.
0.5%. 0.5. Low by historical standards, but higher than the last 3 years during COVID. By contrast, that number was 1% in 1980. The growth rate has really declined. Our number of births fell to its lowest level since 1979. Now let's take a look at who we are. 22% of our country's population was 17 years old or younger. 36% were adults aged 18 to 44. 25% were 45 to 64 years old. And 18% of us were over 65.
Okay.
And I can say us. And just think, in 1980, seniors were 11.3% of our population and now account for 18%. Wow. And people under
So it's
18 were 28%.
So I guess, is this a sign of like a slowly aging population? I don't know this in geography, I can't remember. I mean, you still got like the working age is like what, 61% of the population. So that's still, I think, probably what you'd want as a country. I mean, I don't know what Japan would look like, for example. I feel like Japan's probably what, like 30% 65 plus, and then like 20%, 20%, 50, like, I don't know. Not doing the maths realistically, but something like that, because Japan's got a real problem with an aging population, right? This still looks like a population where you've got a large majority of people who can still be in some sort of work, right? So that's probably not an aging population, to be honest. I need to see this from the tree view, and that's what I remember from geography.
Back then, but now it's down to 22%. That's a huge change in the world of demographics. Kind of blows my mind. Meanwhile, the composition of U.S. households has also shifted. Married parent households have fallen from 31% of U.S. households in 1980 to just 18% in 2023. Wow, that is so different than from my childhood. At the same time, The share of households comprised of adults living alone without children increased from 23% to 29%.
Damn.
That's also a big change in the world of demographics. The percentage of married people with no kids at home has stayed relatively stable between 28 and 29%.
Why has that
Now,
stabilized so much?
single-parent households with kids under 18 have also remained stable around 7.5%.
Okay.
There are now 10 million single-parent family households, 75% of which are single mothers and 25% are single fathers. However, in 1980, that dynamic was 90% single mothers and 10% single fathers.
It's changing.
One fact that will likely ring true to many of you, 58% of men and 55% of women aged 18 to 24 lived in their parents' home in 2023. For men, that's actually a 6 percentage
Who is doing these like statistics? Is it just like online surveys and stuff?
point increase
It says U.S. Census Bureau. Where are they getting this information from?
since 1960, but the share of young women living
Holy
at home
shit.
is up 20 percentage points.
So women back in the 1960s were just out on their own from day one. As soon as they turned 18, they'd gone. Well, obviously it's not that extreme, but that's a crazy contrast.
Even more interesting is the 25 to 34-year-old age group, where 20% of men live with their parents, up from 11% in 1960.
Damn.
And 12%
I mean, that's probably down to the prices and stuff, isn't it?
of women live with their parents, up from 7% in 19.
Why are women so much lower when it comes to living at home with your parents still? I wonder what the reasoning behind that is. It like societal reasons, or is it, I don't know, certain other things? I'm not too sure.
1960. That's really interesting to me. Most of this growth has happened since 2008, and people are getting married later in life. The U.S. Census Bureau found that the median age for marriage in 1980 was 22 for women and close to 25 for men. In 2023, it was 28 years old for women and 30 years old for men, another big demographic shift. Our country has also gotten more diverse. The principal change has been the growth of the Hispanic and Asian populations. In 1990, Hispanics were 9% of the population and now comprise 19%. The Asian population went from 3% to now 6%. The black population
When this is Asian population, that's such a wide variety. What does that mean? Is that just everyone from Asia, or is that like more focused on like, I don't know, people from like India? I guess, I don't know. Would Indians be its own thing? I don't really know.
up 12% of the total in 1990 and is 13% today.
So that's the one that slowed the most. That's interesting.
Let's look at 6 different groups of people based upon Census Bureau data. First, let's look at people who identify as white but not Hispanic, about 195 million people. Then there are people who identify as white who also identify as Hispanic. That's over 56 million people. Black people who identify as non-Hispanic, 42 million people. And then black people who
Why does Hispanic have its own sort
Identify
of its own ethnicity compared to like just white or just black? I mean, again, maybe it's cultural reasons again. I'm not too sure. I guess maybe someone with a background in Colombia may feel different to someone with a background from somewhere else. I don't know.
Hispanic, 3.4 million people. Asians, 21 million people plus, and all other people in the U.S.
It's probably a really dumb question. Just so you know, we don't really have many Hispanic people in the UK, so I'm not really aware of like their sort of, I guess, the culture and I guess just really understanding the reasoning behind this stuff.
Close to 16 million. The Census Bureau does evolve how it presents the nation's population as time goes by. The first census in 1790 only identified 3 groups: free whites, other free people, and slaves.
Fucking
The
hell.
categories will change again in the next few years.
Okay.
In recent decades, there have been notable changes in not only who we are, but where we live. Here's a fun fact. To follow the overall trends of population changes between states, we can actually just look at the number of congresspeople assigned to each state and how that has changed over time. Currently, every congressional district includes approximately 760,000 people. Since 1980, the biggest winners, or growers, if you will, have been states like Texas, with an increase of 11 members of Congress. The biggest losers, relatively in population, are states like New York, who lost 8 congresspeople.
Oh,
Looks
damn.
like a lot of people have decided they prefer warm weather and sunshine. Not me. I'll stick with Seattle.
Fair.
Household income includes income from work and from investments you might own. Income includes government benefits paid, but it does not include non-cash government assistance like health insurance, Medicaid, Medicare, food assistance like SNAP, subsidized housing, or other similar programs. Median household income has risen over time. From 1984 to 2013, it rose by about $9,000 before increasing sharply from 2014 to 2019.
Holy shit. What the hell caused that sharp increase?
To
stagnated for a bit.
$78,050 per household, and then fell in the last few years back to $74,580. All of those numbers were adjusted for inflation. In
The fact
2022,
that that's the median household income is mad.
the median income for white, non-Hispanic households was just over $81,000.
Okay, so we're getting a proper background on everything now. Like all different things.
For black households, it was 35% less, at $52,000 plus. For Hispanic households, it was $62,000 plus, which is 23% less than white, non-Hispanic households. Asian households had the highest household income at just under
Fucking
$109,000.
hell, 100,000. Bloody hell.
Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Utah have the highest median household incomes in the country. The lowest are in Mississippi, West Virginia, and Arkansas. Now let's take
Wait, in Maryland, Washington, Utah. Interesting.
are in Mississippi, West Virginia, and Arkansas.
Wait, so it's not in LA where you just have to have more money, or Hawaii where you just have to have more money,
Now let's take
or Massachusetts.
a look at education. In 2022, among those 25 or older, 9% had less than a high school diploma or equivalent. 28% of people had high school graduate as their highest level of school completed. 15% of people had completed some college, but not a degree. 10% had an associate degree. 23% had a bachelor's degree. 14% had actually completed an advanced degree, such as a master's, a professional certification, or a doctoral degree.
Okay.
In 1980, 17% of the population 25 years or older had completed at least 4 years of college. In 2022, 38%.
Okay.
That's a big increase from my perspective.
Yeah. That's
Since
mad.
1993, 24% of people who identify as white but not Hispanic had 4 years of college or more. By 2022, that rose to 42%. For blacks, it went from 12% to nearly 28%. And for Hispanics, people who identified black or white as Hispanics, it went from 9% to 21%. And Asians are now at 59%.
Damn.
In 2023, more women had a college degree than men,
Holy shit.
39.7 to 36.9%, so it's close. But in 1980, men had a 7.3 percentage point advantage, 20.9% compared to 13.6%. Now let's take on this question. is college worth it? The weekly median earnings for a person with a bachelor's degree is $1,500. And for people whose highest level of education is a high school diploma, it's only $900. College is not for everyone, but on average, it pays. Let's talk about how our kids are doing in school. Between 1990 and 2022, math proficiency increased from 15% to 26% among 8th graders and from 13% to 36% among 4th graders.
This is such a mad deep dive. And this is facts, but this is like going into like lots of information that I probably don't even know about, to be honest, and a lot of people won't know about.
I love the improvement. I think the scores are overall lower than at least I would hope for as a citizen. Reading proficiency began being measured in 1992 and has barely increased at all, from just over 29% to 31% for 8th graders and 29% to 33% among 4th graders. All test scores peaked between 2013 and 2017 and have declined some since. For example, 4th grade math proficiency peaked at 42% in 2013, but now we see it at 36%. To me, that's the wrong direction. Here's my view. As a nation, it just isn't acceptable where we are, and there are a lot of factors that go into these scores, not just what goes on in the classroom. But we need to do better. Let's take a bit of a look at what Americans do for a living. First of all, reference. 161 million Americans are working. In 2022, there were 20.9...
What? Out of 300 and what? 300 plus million. So what, like 50%? Wait, I guess maybe some will be in families where one won't work. And then obviously some people, to be fair, some people won't be of age to be able to work, either a kid or you're retirement age, or you just retire early. Or maybe they don't really include, no, obviously they include self-employed. I wonder how this numbers come, like how they've come to this number.
Are working. In 2022, there were 20.9 million people working for our government.
What?
79% worked for state and local government, and 21% worked for the federal government. In the private sector, the largest occupations in the United States in order are: 1, home health and personal care aides. That makes sense as we get older. As our population is the oldest it has ever been, jobs have been created to take care of our elderly. Retail salesperson, number 2. Number 3, fast food and counter workers. Number 4 are management jobs, general management and operations management. Next, cashiers, registered nurses, laborers, and freight, stock, and material movers by hand, a big group. All of these occupations had between 3 and 4 million people working in them in 2023.
Damn.
As an example how some of these things have changed, in 1990, there were over 2 million people in active duty military. But by 2023, that number had decreased to 1.3 million people. Another good example. In 1990, there were 2.6 million public K-12 teachers. But by the 2021 school year, there were 3.8 million.
What does K to 12 teach? Is just school teachers? I mean, if that's the case, then it's a very good increase, but also I guess that's also going with the increase in population as well.
Teachers. In 1993, there were 543,000 police officers with the power of arrest.
That's
and
a
by
slow
2022, there were 706,000. Now, keep in mind, there are more students and people in the country each year, but to me it was interesting that the military personnel has gone down, police have gone up some, and school teachers have gone up quite a bit more. Food for thought in there. Let's compare that to personal financial advisors. There are 272,000. Psychologists, 150,000. Zoologists, 17,000.
Jeez, that's a
I'm
rare
sure
job.
it won't surprise you that more Americans are working from home post-pandemic than pre-pandemic. In 2019, 6% of Americans worked from home. In 2022, that number was 15%. Lower, frankly, than I expected. Washington, D.C. had the most remote workers in 2022. Mississippi and North Dakota had the least. For those who still commute to work, the average commute time is 26 minutes. Less than 1% of people ride a bike to work.
That's pretty cool.
2%
See this.
walk to work.
I wonder how this would compare to the UK. I think the UK would be like 10% bike, 30% walk, taxi. I don't know. Many would get a taxi. Public transport probably like 30%. Cars like 20-25%. Or work from home as well. I actually do wonder how this would look in the UK, like commuting to work.
3% only take public transportation to work, while 69% of people drove alone, and that's by far the most popular form of commuting in the United States. 92% of households in the U.S. had at least one car available to them in 2022. Actually, 37% had access to 2 cars.
Damn.
And
Bloody hell. 22%.
22% had access to 3 or more.
Crazy.
3.3 trillion miles were driven in 2023 compared to 1.5 trillion in 1980. That's an increase of 115% over a time when the population only grew 47%. We are driving more. Let's talk about technology. In 1980, no one had an internet subscription. The consumer internet didn't exist. It was just something for scientists and researchers. In 2023, 96% of U.S. households had at least one type of computer, and 92% had a broadband internet subscription. Smartphones were the most common computing device in U.S. households. Of course. 92% of households have at least one, followed by 80% of households who have one or more desktop or laptop.
I mean, like, I couldn't fathom not having internet, for example. Some people are probably much happier without it, honestly. Maybe some of them don't have a choice, they can't afford it, but I'd assume many people, just from that percentage who don't have broadband, it's by choice. And I've got to respect that, because my fucking Gen Z brain couldn't fathom that. But yeah, I have all of these. Like, it's just mad how time changed. Like 30 years ago, computing device, I mean, that would probably be being like the 5%, and you wouldn't really be able to use it for much in the 1980s, would you? There was no internet, smartphones, no desktop or laptop. I don't think. Well, desktop. Oh, this is a computing device. Wait, desktop. Again, that probably like low percent, like 4 or 5%. Laptops definitely weren't a thing in the 1980s. I don't even know when they became a thing. Probably like the mid 90s, late 90s. You know what? I've got to search that up. When did laptops come out? Oh, the early 1980s. Okay, I am surprised. What the fuck could you have done with a laptop in 1981? Well, there you go. That's something that I didn't know.
Computers and 64% with tablet. Here's a fun fact.
64. Actually, to be fair, my girlfriend has an iPad, which pretty much is a tablet, isn't it?
Americans gamble. We spent approximately $98 billion on lottery tickets in 2022. I found this surprising. Massachusetts residents spend the most at $970 per capita, while North Dakota residents spent the least, just $37. How about a little lightning round of other interesting facts about America?
Okay.
1, 16 million veterans in the country. 2, 1.3 million active duty soldiers. 3, 67 million people on Medicare.
Holy shit.
While there's
what
75
does that actually mean? 67 million people on Medicare or on Medicaid. What does this mean? Is this like a sort of insurance, or is it cheaper medical help, or like what does that actually mean?
Million people on Medicaid. 42 million people relied on food stamps as of 2023.
Jeez, 42.
38 million people, unfortunately, were below the poverty line in 2022. 70 million people received Social Security. Our life expectancy.
But do you know, like, obviously, as horrible and as sad as this is, do you know how lucky even just to have these options?
38 million people, unfortunately, stamps.
Like when I was at my mum's, to be fair, food stamps were quite important for us before I started working and stuff, and when I was younger. So, like, obviously, it's sad to see the people that can't afford to get their own stuff, but at the same time, how incredible it is for us to have the ability to have this as extra help in like first world countries. It's such a blessing. Like things like this, you get looked over so much, but it's amazing that we can have these, the ability to get food like these kinds of ways, you know.
With the poverty line in 2022, 70 million people received Social Security. Our life expectancy
70 million people, damn.
is about 77.5 years for someone born today, but the average age of death is 73 years. 1.2 million people were in prison in 2022. That doesn't include people who were in jail, typically for periods under a year. America has 880 million acres of farmland.
Not
That's
surprised.
the size of Texas times 5.
Holy
In
shit.
2022, corn was our #1 cash crop, followed by soybeans, fruits, and nuts.
Damn.
After oil and gas, civilian aircrafts and parts are the country's biggest export. Our biggest export specifically to China, soybeans.
To China.
And finally, a word on our democracy. The 2020 presidential election had the highest voter turnout of the 21st century, with 66.8% of citizens over 18 voting in the election.
Damn.
That's great. As with past elections, a higher share of women than men turned out to vote.
Why is that? Why? I mean, there's probably, again, certain reasons. I wonder why it's more in women than men.
68.4% of women, 65%.
I mean, it's not a massive difference, but then, like, when it comes to it, it's probably a good, like, 5, 6, 7 million, something like that.
Of men. Voter turnout also increased as age, educational attainment, and income increased. Voter turnout was highest among those ages 65 to 74 at 76%, while the percentage was lowest among those aged 18 to 24 at 51%. It's sure going to be interesting to see what those numbers look like this election cycle. I've learned a lot from this. I hope you have too. In this series,
Well, this is made
Just the
a month
Facts,
ago.
we've covered the budget, immigration.
Student loan debt is the most effective form of birth control ever invented. As a Canadian, I thank you for you and your team's work on this. Congrats to the graphics people on this. So clean, so clear. Fair. It's a well put together video, isn't it? It's just like sort of like straight to the point kind of thing. But he's done loads of videos, just facts about US immigration. He's got loads of videos on US facts. I might have to check his channel out. What other videos does he have? Just facts about US healthcare, about US economy. Okay, this is a pretty cool channel. I feel like I'm going to be checking his channel out quite a lot. For sure. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. Hopefully you enjoyed this reaction. And yeah, until next time, like, subscribe, and peace.